Welcome to Absolute Trust Talk with your host, Kirsten Howe. Absolute Trust Talk brings you tips, tools, advice, and interviews to help you build a reliable knowledge base on estate planning, business, and finance to start preparing for your future today.
Hello and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. I am Kirsten Howe. I'm here with my associate attorney, Jessica Colbert. And this is our Facebook Live version of our podcast here at Absolute Trust Council. And we just got out of a long period of super hot weather, and finally it's getting cool, but it was raining a few minutes ago at my house. Jessica and I are obviously in different locations. Did you get some rain over there in San Francisco?
I didn't hear or see any. I'll admit I haven't been outside this morning, but I didn't catch any.
I saw on the news that it was supposed to rain, but it was going to be just barely, almost nothing, but I'm aware of it because it was loud enough that I could hear it, hitting my roof and my skylights and all that kind of thing. So anyway, that's good. We need rain always. All right. So we are here today to pick up where we left off. Last time we were talking about alternatives to probate. Probate is always something we're planning to avoid. We're trying to avoid. But in our experience, administering our clients' trusts after somebody passes away, there very often, almost always, is at least one asset that didn't make it into the trust. And sometimes that means there'll be a probate, but there are alternatives. So sometimes it doesn't mean a probate. And we talked last time about the small estate affidavit. And now we're going to talk about a procedure that can only be used by the surviving spouse of the decedent. Jessica, you want to tell us a little bit about this?
Yes, we will be talking about a spousal property petition. And this is a petition that the surviving spouse can file with the court. They are basically asking the court to confirm that assets that were owned by their now deceased spouse belong to them as a surviving spouse, that they are entitled to it either because they were the beneficiary under their spouse's will or because as their spouse, they are their heir and therefore entitled to the property. It's still a court procedure, but it's not nearly as bad as probate. It's a streamlined process for surviving spouses.
Right. It's not as long or complicated and therefore expensive. Usually complicated means expensive when you're talking about attorney involvement. It's not as complicated as a probate. Typically, we just file the one petition. It's called a spousal property petition. We have to give notice to a variety of other possible heirs and beneficiaries like the children. And we get a hearing date when we file our petition. And anybody who wants to object is now allowed to file some kind of an objection prior to the hearing date or come to the hearing and state their objection. And then we attend the hearing on behalf of our client, who would be the surviving spouse. And if there are no objections and there's nothing wrong with what we've submitted to the court, the judge will sign an order that says this property, and they'll list out the various things, now belongs to this surviving spouse.
Now, last time we talked about the small estate affidavit, and we said that that could only be used if the total value of the assets was under the probate threshold, which is $184,500. Is that also the case here?
So no, that's a very important point. The spousal property petition can be used for anything that is either left to the surviving spouse without a trust or inherited by the surviving spouse under the rules of intestacy. It doesn't matter the value. Anything the surviving spouse is claiming can be put into a spousal property petition. But I guess that also brings up the point that if it's under $184,500, the surviving spouse is just going to go ahead and do a small estate affidavit. They're not going to bother with this court process. They're only going to do it if it's above that amount logically.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's also important to note that this spousal property petition can be used by the surviving spouse's representative. And I'm going to elaborate on that with an example. Let's say that a client walks in our door. It's a child of both of their parents have now passed away. Dad died 10 years ago. Mom just died earlier this year. At the time that dad died 10 years ago, mom didn't do any of the legal work that would have been required to handle dad's estate. So at this point, both of mom and dad had assets in their name alone. They didn't have beneficiary designations. The red flags are going up. Do we have to do a probate? And if we're able to open a probate for mom's estate, who just died this year, and get the child named as the representative of mom's estate, then as representative of mom's estate, the child can file that spousal property petition for dad's estate in order to get dad's assets into mom's estate, wrap up dad's estate fairly quickly, and then only have to finish the probate of mom's estate.
Excellent. Yeah. And we've had that a number of times, that we've even had another probate on top of that in one case quite a few years ago. But it's important to remember that the spousal property petition can only be used to transfer assets from one deceased spouse to the other spouse. So that's why we can't use it after the second death to get the second spouse's assets. We can only use it to get the first spouse's in this kind of scenario. But it's a lot easier than doing two probates for sure. And so that's what we do. And these are always fun cases for us. It's like, putting a puzzle together, figuring out how the pieces are going to fit. How can we make this work? What's the easiest way to get these assets to the family? What's the least expensive way? So anyway, we are, at least me, I'm not going to paint Jessica with this brush, but I really nerd out and I love these kinds of cases.
No, I like it. I like getting creative with it.
Yeah, it's fun. Okay. Thank you, Jessica. I hope you all learned something useful, and we look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcouncil.com/scheduling. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcouncil.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.
This podcast is not meant to take the place of legal advice from an attorney and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you do have a legal question or issue, please consult with an attorney.